So we have some more bad news, but once again, it's for Nvidia and maybe the consumer, but first it's for Nvidia. Apparently, they're sort of canceling should be one of their best GPUs. I'm going to tell you what that GPU is, and trust me, I have a lot to say on this because this is a GPU that I complained about because of its pretty outrageous pricing and really wasn't very transparent what they did. So that GPU is the RTX 3080 12GB. The 3080, you could say, was the legendary and still is legendary GPU of the RTX 3000 lineup, primarily because the original 10GB model really had some tremendous performance for a promised MSRP of $699. But you guys know the story from here. That MSRP was devilishly difficult to acquire at any point, even up until today. It's still pretty difficult to find it for $699, even though it's slightly easier. So that GPU itself became legendary. As time went on, Nvidia probably got tired of selling that GPU for $699 because, get this, on the secondary market, many of these GPUs, especially the Founder Editions, were being sold for as much as $2,000. That's just around 3 times its MSRP price because of its prowess in cryptocurrency mining, and not just because it was a really great gaming GPU, which it really is, but primarily because it was a very powerful GPU for cryptocurrency mining. Priced pretty good is a Windows CD key. Today's video sponsor is going to be VIP-CDKdeals.com. Very simple process. You can get a Windows 10 Pro CD key and remember to use code CC20 for a nice discount. And a while after the RTX 3080, they released a 12GB model. Now, this one, you could even say it's sort of a little bit of a stripped down RTX 3080 Ti. It does share some similarities. It's going to have more CUDA cores than the original 10GB RTX 3080. Of course, 2 extra gigabyte of VRAM, which is a little bit more future-proof, a little bit more headroom. It's going to be the exact same type, the GDDR6X, the nice and fast one that gets a little bit toasty. So in general, it's a superior GPU. Everybody can agree to the original RTX 3080, the 10GB, and it's pretty much approaching a 3080 Ti. Didn't make too much sense in terms of the consumer because why do you need another GPU between a 3080 and a 3080 Ti? They are already really fairly close, especially considering the 3090 is still close to the 3080 Ti. So all 3 of those are fairly close by a few percentage points, and it's not like 2 extra gigabytes of VRAM is really going to be eye-opening or anything like that. 16 would be a bigger difference, but 2, not really all that big of a difference to go from 10 to 12. So the biggest reason Nvidia released that GPU, and I know you guys know this already, biggest reason for the release of the 3080 12GB was so all the third-party AIBs and Nvidia could basically increase the price without technically having to do it via MSRP. Now, they've been selling Founder Edition GPUs, which are the cheapest you can buy, original MSRP of every single one from the 3060 Ti up to the 3090 Ti, starting at $399, and of course the 3080, like we said, is $699. They didn't really want to release a 3080 Founders Edition that's going to be 12GB because they would have to put sort of a fair price on it, a Founders Edition price if they did that. Now, what could you really charge over a 10GB 3080? You could say $799 sounds actually very fair for that GPU at the time they released it because it's $100 more. You're getting some more VRAM. That's all fine. You're getting a few more CUDA cores. It's only $100 more than already fairly priced $699 3080. So that all seems good, but Nvidia doesn't want to charge you $799. They want to go through their AIB partners and charge you probably at least $1299. So basically, these 12GB 3080 models were going for more than the MSRP of the 3080 Ti even at the time. So that shows you that Nvidia sort of did this little backdoor maneuver, letting the AIBs price it expensively. Maybe people wouldn't notice since the market was already so highly priced. Every store that you would go into online, scalpers, everybody was pricing them high, so they wanted to join in the fun, at least the fun for them, definitely not fun as a consumer or for somebody looking for a GPU. Some of these were even priced over $1,500, which is really around the price of what a 3090 should be at $1,499. Certainly pretty crazy. Now, they have to pay the piper, because now the market really has dropped significantly heavy. All the GPUs are going down in price very, very quickly. And instead of actually lowering the price on every GPU, which I noticed they kind of stopped lowering the prices. Prices went back down to sort of what the MSRP should be, which generally is maybe $100 more than the Founder Edition GPUs, but it's pretty stagnant. The GPUs are staying on the shelves. Not many people at all are buying these GPUs. So Nvidia is trying a different maneuver. Instead of lowering their price, which would affect what they do with RTX 4000, if they have cheap GPUs now, they're going to have to keep that trend. It's going to affect their pricing. Instead of doing that, they're just going to outright cancel the RTX 3080 12GB. Don't send any more to their partners. Consumers aren't really going to know or notice. A lot of consumers may not even know there's a 12GB version compared to a 10GB. Of course, if you watch my channel and stay subscribed, you're definitely going to know that difference. But nobody's really going to know that's not really paying attention, and they can just stop making it because financially it's not going to make sense to drop that any lower. Nobody's buying that GPU. In fact, nobody's even buying 3080 Ti's for $1,200 anymore, even $1,000. If you're lucky, that's around the price that some people will still buy them at. So having said that, nobody in their right mind is going to buy a 12GB 3080 for anything really too much over the original MSRP of $699 or $799. Even that is a hard sell. So it looks like Nvidia is just going to prefer to flat out cancel that GPU. This is actually a pretty interesting strategy. If you notice, Intel for many years, even when their CPUs weren't selling very well, take like the X299 platform, the 10980XE, and even the 9980XE, before they even dropped any pricing on these CPUs, their strategy was just to keep a very low inventory at the high price. People would just view them as expensive, but they wouldn't sell them and do a fire sale on them, even with Ryzen sort of right at their heels and making them drop these prices. So they would just make them disappear from the market, have paper launches, not even appear at all, instead of having to drop the price, because that's going to affect people's perception. It seems like it's worse in their eyes, like Nvidia or Intel, for people to see price drops and think that the price is now cheap, and that way they're going to expect cheaper future products. These companies seem to think it's a better idea to leave the product at a high price on the shelf, and even if the consumer thinks it's a bad value or the performance isn't good or it's outdated, whatever they think, it's still something that's highly priced, and if they don't buy it, they'll just probably, take the loss and try to make it up some other time in the future or something like that. So it's certainly an interesting strategy, and it looks like Nvidia is doing this now. Instead of lowering prices with the massive amount of GPUs that are out there and less people buying them, they just seem to either be keeping the price at the same level or completely disappearing some GPUs from the market if they can help it, at least to aim sort of whatever GPUs are still being bought. Maybe they have more 10GB of the 3080s to sell, so maybe removing the 12GB version will allow them to clear that stock before RTX 4000 comes out. But certainly lowering prices and having a lot on the market does not seem like a strategy that they want to do, because after all, RTX 4000 rolls around, they're going to want to price these very, very high. Of course, they're going to have to sort of keep parity with the original Founders Edition, so they're not going to be able to probably pull the same stunt that they did with this 3080 12GB by just giving it to the sort of third-party AIBs to price it as they wish, because the market is very soft right now. Unless the market goes back to a very hot market like we had last year due to some unforeseen events or anything like that that may change, it looks like they're going to have to just price them high and sell whatever they can sell. But I doubt they're going to lower the prices, and them sort of canceling or stopping production on this RTX 3080, the 12GB version, this is pretty much a good sign of their strategy of what's going to be happening. So what does that leave for you, the consumer? I still think right now you shouldn't buy any GPU at all unless you get a fantastic deal. These still are great GPUs. Don't get me wrong. The 3080 12GB, it performs really well for gaming. It's definitely a great GPU. The problem here is the price that you buy it at, especially considering the RTX 4000 that's coming out. So unless you get really, really good deal on it, like, I don't know, maybe $500 or $600, something that's well below, you would have to get that probably secondhand and used, which there have been 3080s in the $500 to $600 range. That I still think is fair, because even if a 4080 comes out or even a 4060 that equals the performance, it's still going to be much more expensive probably and harder to get, and you're not going to lose as much if you get it that cheap. Now, if you bought a 3080 at $1,500, a 12GB one, then unfortunately you're just going to have to pretty much take the massive depreciation hit as most other people who bought GPUs during the last year. That's just an unfortunate unfortunate sort of consequence of what has happened in the GPU market. So I still recommend, of course, wait, don't buy any GPUs unless you see a great deal. And unfortunately, most of these great deals are only going to be in the secondhand and used market. I know some people are apprehensive about buying used GPUs, but if you're careful and you get a little bit lucky, you can get some significant savings. After all, the stores are still priced very high because they're retail stores, and they're going to have to sort of protect their bottom line. They probably bought these GPUs for more money than they're worth now, especially stores like Micro Center. They probably bought a lot of GPUs and the prices went down, so they can only go so low without losing money or just holding on to them, hoping that the market changes. All right, guys, so let me know what you think. Are you surprised that they canceled the 12 gigabyte version of the 3080? Remember to subscribe, smash that like button, and I'll see you guys on the next video.